tonight. Thanks to everybody that came out. Again, I think it's a beautiful display of Virginia Tech. Certainly do appreciate the fan support. I know everybody's disappointed in the outcome of the game. Just my initial thoughts. Obviously, we struggled after the first three series offensively. I don't know that I've ever seen a situation where a team, talking about our team, executed at such a high level for three series and then just shut the valve off execution-wise. It's a little bit disappointing. I mean, if you go back drive by drive and look at the plays, when you're in a game like that, the margin for error is very, very small. It was pretty much shared across all position groups, when I think about it in terms of each position group kind of contributing to that. And then we struggled defensively, stopping the run. I mean, that's obviously we know what they're going to do, and they're going to show up and run the triple. And they hurt us with the quarterback sweep in the first half, and then hurt us inside a little bit more in the second. Questions?
Justin, you don't want to pin it on too much on one play, but that muffed punt, how huge was that? It was going to get the defense off the field, and suddenly.
Well, it certainly was a big play, no question. But I mean, I don't think it's the only play, and I still felt like we were going to be able to, if the offense wants to grow, then they've got to keep us in games that are like this. And we had every opportunity to, and for whatever reason didn't execute. But certainly that, along with several other things, were pretty big factors.
Justin, you used the term the valve shut off on the execution. Did Georgia Tech make some changes after those three possessions?
No, they did not. They played their defense. They switched one blitz that they hadn't done before, just the guys switching the gaps, which no, they didn't do anything different. They lined up and played their defense.
Hey, Justin, you've seen the triple, obviously not just here, but at Memphis. What makes that offense so difficult, so challenging to prepare for, and kind of difficult to defend? There's so many different components to it, obviously.
Well, it's like any. I think the first thing is you don't ever see it. I mean, that's the first thing that comes to your mind. If you played 10 games of triple option, it'd be a little bit different deal. But you play one every year here, and so that the carryover from week to week is not there. It's just a completely different animal. They're very good at it. I mean, Paul's been running it for a long time, and they have some good athletes out there executing it on a pretty high level, and they have answers too. He's a good coach that's had success everywhere he's been, and when you adjust, they adjust.
With the targeting call, did you know they were reviewing it for targeting? Because it was kind of it looked like they were looking at it for the spot, but then they kicked him out. And what are your thoughts on that play?
Yeah, no. At first I thought they were looking at it for a spot, and then they came over and told me they were looking at it for targeting. I understand it. I mean, with the targeting rule the way it is, there's going to be some plays like that. I don't like it because he's a great kid, and I hate that he's going to have to miss the first half of the next game. He wasn't anything malicious, obviously. He was playing hard. But those are the rules, and it's part of it. With the rules the way they are, there's going to be some targeting calls where the guy couldn't have done much else.
And how much did that hurt? Do you guys think a lack of depth with the defense hurt the second half because you're down 3 starters at that point after Khalil went out?
Yeah, but between that and it seemed like we were pulling a guy off the field left and right. It certainly took its toll, yes.
Justin, you mentioned having to pull guys off the field. Do you have any idea about the prognosis for Jared or Dylan?
I don't. Jared tried to go in the second half and just couldn't. I know that Dylan, the X-ray Dylan, there's no break. He was in a boot on the sideline. So I don't know. We'll obviously know more tomorrow about where we're at with all that stuff. But we have an extra couple days, hopefully, to get some guys ready for the next one, which is going to be a physical one too.
Oliver had played some significant snaps for them this season. Is he much different than Marshall, or is it pretty much standard operating
I don't think
procedure?
so. I mean, those guys are, the kid they brought in at the end of the game, I know him pretty well. I've seen him quite a bit, and he's just as good an athlete as the rest of them. I mean, I think they're all pretty talented guys. I don't know that there's a huge discrepancy between what you get with those guys.
Justin, why don't more teams block like they do? That looks like it's be miserable to play against all night. Would that just not work in your pro style offense or?
Yeah, you can't go backwards out of those stances. You can't pass protect. I mean, they're almost in sprinter stances almost. So you can't. You can't do anything but go that way.
I know you and Bud have both talked about how Paul has all the answers as far as mixing things up from week to week. Allegedly, Paul Johnson at halftime, I guess during a halftime interview, said that they blocked tonight like they've never blocked before. They used a different scheme. Had you seen what they were doing tonight in preparation for this?
In the first half, they ran the quarterback sweep a bunch. And, I mean, that's not something that they run. I mean, usually it's an option, but it was like loaded sweep. You know you're going to get something. I'm sorry, Paul, but you know you're going to get something different. Going into the game. So you defend what you can defend, and then you try to adjust, make the adjustments after that. Go ahead, Paul.
You mentioned that Georgia Tech has answers for any adjustments an opponent makes. After this game, do you feel like, are you worried about answers you have to find for your team, or do you look at this as a one-off game against an unusual alignment?
On defense?
On offense and defense.
I look at it as our quest for improvement. That's where we're at. And, yeah, the game, because of the scheme, particularly for our defense, there's not a lot of carryover for the next week. There's just not. I mean, we lined up totally different than we would lined up. We lined up in a 4-3 stack defense, which we don't play. So, Reggie Floyd played essentially linebacker this week. So there's not a lot of carryover there. I think the important thing is for us to continue to focus on staying together and getting better. And I'm not going to say the words that we talked about at the very first of the season, but we have a relatively inexperienced group that has got to stay focused on continuing to improve, and we can't lose sight of that.
You're not past, obviously, the midway point and this offense. We talked about the valve shut off, and it's been inconsistent, but then shown signs where you could do everything right. Does it confuse you at all? I mean, when you look at some of the highs you've had and lows that you can't really get a grasp on kind of the turns you've been making offensively for the good and the bad?
I don't know. Today, sitting here, whatever it is, 20 minutes after the game, yeah, I'm fuming about how that could happen. It disappoints me that we could execute it at such a high level and then have plays there to be made. And I'm not taking anything away from Georgia Tech's defense. I'm not trying to denigrate their performance tonight. I'm just saying that there were several things there that should have been relatively routine and that we stopped making, or we didn't have the focus or the discipline to make. And that's got to change. That's a mentality, that's a discipline level, that's attention to detail that we have to have as a group.
Justin, whether it's the young guys or the old guys, what did you see from your group after Old Dominion in terms of how they kind of bounced back from a disappointing performance, and does that give you confidence going forward? Well,
I think we have a resilient, prideful group. I really do. You know, there's an element of our team that doesn't know what they don't know, but they have a tremendous amount of pride, and you know, our focus has got to, you know, certainly they did bounce back that time, which doesn't guarantee we'll bounce back the next time. We've got to make ourselves do it, and we've got to have that type of mentality. There's only one way out of it, and that's to focus on our improvement. You know, the old roll your sleeves up and you know, buckle down and go to work, trying to be as good as we can be, whatever that is. You know, that should be our focus, is nothing else other than our improvement on a daily basis to be as good a football team as we can be.
Justin, when you have a team that's so young on defense and they have such a frustrating performance tonight where they just couldn't stop their running game, is it hard to keep their confidence up? And, you know, because you guys are asking them a lot with all the focus and all that stuff you want them to put into this. Is that an awful lot for a young football player?
Well, I think there's an element of coaching there, you know, in terms of keeping the guys going, you know, and continuing to try and put them in good situations, and hopefully leading to positive, good outcomes that in turn boost, you know, their internal confidence. And you know, the good thing is we as a team have been through those things now. You know, we've been through hard times. We've lost a heavily favored football game. We've won big games on the road. We've played, you know, we've stopped a team on the 2-yard line and drove 98 yards in 6.5 minutes to win the game. And so, you know, there's some positives to dwell upon or to draw back on. But I think it's important as a coach that you continue to highlight those things regardless of the outcome. You know, and I think Bud does a great job of that with the defense. Brad does a good job with it offensively, and James does a good job with it on special teams. Is you can't hide, you know, the result on the scoreboard can't hide what we've got to improve on, whether you won or lost. And you know, we have plenty of things to draw confidence from, you know, but I think you as a coach, you have to continue to encourage and bring along and do your best to put them in good position so that they have the opportunity to have success. You bet.